Hi, Mohamed. Nice to see you sent another set of essays for us. Let's take a look at what you wrote. This is about pollution, the reasons, and the solutions. Let's see what you said. Pollution and its sequelae are getting more serious nowadays, especially in urban communities. This essay will discuss some causes for this and give suggestions as to how this grave problem might be solved. Okay, brief to the point. I like it. First and foremost, you need here. In the cities, again, overcrowded traffic is considered one of the principal causes of pollution. Populations of major cities are increasing day by day. In addition, the workforce, you need a the right here in front of workforce. The workforce is rising in major cities. Consequently, the need for using cars is escalating, even to alarming rates in some areas. Another cause of pollution is lack of awareness in certain areas of major cities, not of, but regarding how to get rid of household and other types of garbage. Well, try it again. Another type of pollution is check it out. So the cause of pollution is not lack of awareness. Um, let's see. How can you say this in a way that makes sense? You see, it's not the lack of awareness, it's the fact that people are discarding their garbage poorly. So, another cause of pollution is poor waste management, which comes as a result of a lack of awareness in certain major cities with regard to their household rubbish and other types of garbage. So you can see I've made it really rather complex, but you did need to use some of this language to make the sentence make sense grammatically. You could have, of course, simplified it considerably. Yeah, so waste management is another cause of pollution in major cities. This happens because there is a lack of awareness in certain areas regarding how to get rid of household waste and other types of garbage. Simple, okay? Let's keep going. In some areas of the world, you don't really use a lot of commas where you should, okay? So keep that in mind. In some areas of the world, rivers are full of paper waste products which should have been disposed of. You dispose of something in prepared bins. For example, I read in a research magazine that the percentage of lead particles in the atmosphere of Cairo in Egypt reached 20 times more than the permissible values for human survival. Lead particles are mainly found from car exhaust products. Okay. All right. Another example was given in another scientific magazine that pollution in the water of River Nile in Egypt climbed to 10 times the allowed rates due to erroneous disposal rituals of certain materials in the waters of this river. To sum up, pollution in major urban communities can be caused by increasing traffic congestion and wrong habits of waste disposal. Okay. So, very developed. That's great. And a thing I like is that you had some sort of support for each of your reasons. My problem is with the organization of these ideas. So here, this whole thing, where is it? This really didn't belong here. And I was reading it and I didn't understand why you were talking about this. This really should have belonged directly after this sentence. Okay, so a better rule of thumb is to put your support directly after the idea it supports. Because all this time um, you were talking about waste products and poor waste disposal, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden you're talking about lead particles. So I was like, I didn't understand it. So it's a better rule of thumb to have reason, support, reason, support. It's a better way of organizing this. This way, we're absolutely clear what each type of support is referring to. So keep that in mind and try to avoid this kind of construction here where you've got, reason, and then underneath you've got support. That's less effective. Okay. Let's see. As regard to solutions for these problems, we can see that provision of the means for collective transport can help to reduce the issue of traffic congestion and hence atmospheric pollution. If we use one bus, we will renounce to at least 20 cars by transporting at least 50 persons in one bus. All right, this is a wrong word. Renounce to, that's incorrectly used, so get rid of that. Change it with something that makes more sense here. I can't help you with the word because I'm not really sure what you're trying to say. If we use one bus, we reduce the equivalent of 20 cars. Maybe this is what you mean. Now, we don't typically use the word persons. In modern times, we basically use people as the plural for person. Concerning the methods of waste disposal, raising public awareness and provision of the appropriate disposal bins will be an outstanding solution. For instance, I read in a scientific article that the Canadian government was able to reduce atmospheric pollution by 35% when it increased the number of buses heading downtown in rush hours. Now, I want you to be careful about one thing. Let me see if I can find it. Here you wrote, I read in a research magazine. And then you said, was given in another scientific magazine. And then I read in a scientific article. It felt a little repetitive to me. Now, I think it's great that you're, creating this like research, something to kind of support your argument. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But you do need to rephrase it a little bit to avoid this, what feels like repetitive language. Okay. So you could have said instead, for instance, it has been reported that the Canadian government was able to reduce atmospheric pollution, or it was found that. Okay, so just to give you some alternatives to this, I read in a research magazine, I read in a scientific journal, I read in a whatever. Okay. So buses encourage people to use another method to head to their workplaces, which is cheaper and faster than private cars. Another example was published in not a research, because research is uncountable, was published in a study in a developing country where appropriate garbage bins reduce the amount of waste, uncountable, of different types thrown in roads and rivers. To sum up, collective transport and appropriate waste bins can be good solutions to the causes of pollution mentioned above. Fine. In conclusion, pollution has grave repercussions. Nice expression there, good. However, by studying its causes like car exhaust and wrong disposal rituals, no, not by, get rid of the by. Studying its causes like car exhaust and wrong disposal rituals can help us to reach impressive solutions to this problem. Okay, so fine. Brief, to the point. I like introductions like yours. I like conclusions like yours. They get to the point, they do what they need to do, and then they're done. And you really instead spend a ton of time developing, which is exactly what you should do. So good for doing that. Okay. I also didn't like the word wrong disposal rituals. Rituals isn't really appropriate in this context. Wrong disposal processes, wrong disposal methods. This isn't really a ritual. Ritual makes us think of something maybe like cultural, maybe religious. These are rituals, but it wouldn't be appropriate here. So you could have used one of those other words instead. Okay, but overall, it's a nice task 2, and I'm looking forward to reading your task 1. So let's go do that. All right, so here's your task 1. Thanks for including the link. If you can, also include the actual image. Just copy and paste it. It makes life really easy. But that's fine. We'll try to do it like this. Okay, so cars, the bar chart, let's see what you wrote. The chart shown illustrates the car sales presented in thousands for 3 car enterprises in a series of European countries during the year 2018. Overall, Ford achieved the highest car sales in all of the studied countries. Meanwhile, the lowest figures were recorded by BMW. Okay, this shows me that you've misunderstood this graph. So I absolutely do want to raise it. I want to open it. We'll talk about what a stacked bar chart is, but first let me read at least the first paragraph of what you wrote. I don't like this as regard to. It feels wrong. We usually say with regard to. So with regard to Ford, Hungary had the highest sales, recording 400,000 cars, followed by France, which achieved around 300,000 cars sold. Germany, Ireland, and Holland came after France with an almost similar figure, around 250,000 cars sold. They were followed by Poland, which recorded about 220,000 cars, then UK, that achieved a net value of 200,000 cars sold. Italy had around 120,000 cars sold, and Belgium came in the last position with 90,000 vehicles. All right, let's take a look at this. You have, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So let me open up the diagram and then we'll talk about it. Here's the diagram that you're referring to. Now let's talk a little bit about what this diagram shows us. This is an example of a stacked bar chart. What does that mean? That means that what we're concerned about is these total numbers. So this 300,000, this 400,000, this 100,000, etc. But what does this 400,000 mean here that we're looking at? It means that about 130,000 came from BMWs, another 130 came from Audis, and another 130 came from Ford. So what you're looking at here is the total of those three companies, okay? And then the colors within show you how that total came about. So you can see clearly that in Italy, maybe it was around 130,000, but about 100,000 of that came just from BMW alone. All right, so let's go. So back to this. Now, here's the thing. When you say as regards to Ford, I corrected it to with regard to Ford. It's actually not Ford that you're talking about. If you look at the graph again, at the bar chart, it's the total. So with regard to the total cars sold, and then everything else you wrote here is correct. Okay? However, another thing that I want you to be careful about is writing, how can I say this? Mechanical statements. So when you do something, I mean, it came close to being mechanical. I'm glad that you grouped these three countries together. But when you just kind of go down the row and say, you know, this country had 300, and that country had 400, and that country had 200, and so that just gets a little repetitive. So it's a good idea to maybe do something a little more interesting. So for example, just maybe make some comparisons, do a little math. So when you say Italy had around 120,000 cars, you can say Belgium came in last with 30,000 less. Make some comparisons. So you talk about this and you say the country with the second highest car sales had 100,000 less at 300,000. Okay, so things like that make this feel a little less mechanical. All right, so let's see what you did after that. As for Audi, Hungary and Germany had that. You need a comma here. Here. As for Audi, Hungary and Germany had the highest sales with approximately 250,000 vehicles sold for each of them. They were followed by France, which achieved around 200,000 cars sold, then by Ireland and Poland, which recorded around 180,000 cars. Holland and Italy achieved a similar value of around 120,000 vehicles. UK and Italy recorded around 100,000, then Belgium, which had the least value of approximately 10,000. All right, I have to look at this again. Again, I still think you did this incorrectly. Let me pull it up again. I see that you misinterpreted this chart. For example, Hungary did not sell 250,000 Audis. Instead, it sold about 130. So in other words, it's 130 BMWs plus this, and that gets you to 400,000. So it's about 130,000, 130,000, and 130,000. I think you said something like 200 and something, which is not the case, okay? So again, it's just about understanding how to read stacked bar charts. They do come up every now and then, so it's important to know how to read them. All right, let's go back to your answer here. Good. So I don't want to correct the rest of your values. I think you understand how to do that. So that's something I want you to do. Concerning BMW, France, Germany, and Hungary had similar values of sales of around 110,000 cars. They were followed by Ireland, which, it's not a who, it's a which, had around 100,000. Then came UK and Italy, which registered around 90,000 cars. Hungary had around 70,000 vehicles, while Belgium had 10,000 cars sold. All right, now this for me feels really mechanical. You're not telling me a lot here. You could have really done a much better job of grouping, and that's what you really should have done here. So I'm going to show you how this should be done. Give me a minute to pull up the image again. So one of the things that I want you to see here about, let me see if I can, there we go. Oops, I increased it too much. Hold on a second. Okay. One of the things that I want you to see here about this is that if you really want to use the numbers along the side, which I think you kind of did, but you want to group, and you didn't do really a lot of grouping here. So if this were me, I would have said that BMWs sold approximately 100,000 cars in all countries except for Belgium. Because if it's 110 or if it's 90, I mean, you can just be general and say they sold approximately 100,000, and that's accurate, okay? And that's a good thing to do, especially when you have as many pieces of data as you do here. Do you understand how many pieces of data you have? So not only do you have the 9 countries times BMW times Audi and times Ford, making it 27, but you actually have 36 pieces of information because you also have these total numbers here. So 36 pieces of information is a lot to talk about in one task one. So you definitely need to economize. So let me tell you a little bit about how I would have done this. I would have had one paragraph just for the totals. And it would have read something like this. Hungary had the highest car sales of all 9 countries at approximately 400,000. It was followed closely with 100,000 less by France. The least cars sold were found in Belgium at just under 100,000 cars sold. And second to last was Italy with just over 100,000 cars. The remaining countries all sold between 200 and 270,000 cars. You're done with that paragraph. Get out of there. Then go to BMW. If you want my honest opinion, I think BMW sold more than Ford did. So I would say what I said before about all countries sold roughly 100,000 BMWs, with the exception of Belgium, which sold a negligible amount. Then you're done. Then I would talk about Ford. I would talk about Hungary and Holland's Ford sales. I would talk about Italy and Germany's Ford sales. So you can see I'm talking about the outliers. So the 2 tops, the 2 bottoms, and then again, I can kind of smush everything together with a range. And I could say the remaining countries, and I'll name them, France, UK, Ireland, Holland, Belgium, and Poland, all sold between 70 and 100,000 cars. Okay, so that's how you do it. And you would do the same thing for Audi. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand how to do it. Let me just double check. Did we cover? Yeah, we did cover everything. So you want to make sure that you're not mechanical, where it's just like, okay, this was top, this was second, this was third, this was fourth, this was sixth, etc. You don't want to do that. You want to show a little more kind of critical thinking, which is why I suggest talk about the 2 top, talk about the 2 bottom, and then kind of smush the middle together. That works in a task one like this. So go ahead, correct these. Let's see more work from you. I'm excited. Try to apply this information in your next set, and I'll be waiting, okay? Thanks a lot. So good luck.